Sie sollen sich hüten. Einmal wird unsere Geduld zu Ende sein und dann wird den Juden das freche Lügenmaul gestopft werden.
That was obviously Nazi propaganda head Goebbels. But if you actually move on, Hitler made very similar statements about his patience, about demanding the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia in 1938. And frankly, there's statements like that from Saddam Hussein before he invaded Kuwait. So this is what Aliyev is using, is straight out of the dictator's handbook before they start an aggression. So how must we understand and analyze the words that he was using in Shushi, which is this, that if a peace treaty is signed this year, it will not bring us peace, since the treaty itself will actually be used as an excuse for further aggression. Let me give you a perfect example. If, for example, we accept the idea that Artsakh is Azeri territory, then he will, every time he starts his further ethnic cleansing efforts in Artsakh and the Armenian government says something, he will say, you're interfering with my internal affairs, and that gives me the right or the excuse to attack you. If there is no peace treaty, that will be used as an excuse for more aggression. The reason is simple, is because peace in Artsakh or peace with Armenians does not serve the interest of the regime in Baku. Only a change in the military balance and our ability to defend ourselves will change their calculations. Let's move on to our second topic, which is a press conference that was held by UATE last week. UATE is actually the trade organization, it's the United of Advanced Technology Enterprises in Armenia that represents the IT industry. And they held a press conference demanding for the government and the central bank to act to stop the further appreciation of the drum, since that is hurting their industry, according to them, killing their industry. Now, like all trade groups, frankly, they all tend to exaggerate to get what they want, but this actually is a real issue. The central bank needs to intervene far more aggressively and far more openly and say so that they're going to act to prevent further appreciation. Right now, the drum is around 395, which means it's appreciated against the euro and the dollar by more than 20%, which is, if we go any further than that, I think we're going to have some serious economic repercussions. The only thing that, there's many positive aspects to this, obviously, that we don't see as far as having lower inflation than other countries. But one of the things that's happened is that there's a debt per GDP, which is, how much is the size of your national debt to the size of your economy, has actually declined from 60% to 50%, which is actually something that is very healthy and good for our economic prospects in the long term. Now we're going to move on to our last topic of the week, which is a very interesting comments that were made by the Aliyev's oil minister, which has been little noted around the world, but actually they're quite relevant and important. And what he said is that in order to actually bring to life the expanded gas export possibility from Aliyev's country to the EU, they're going to need $40 billion in investments. Now, this announcement itself is actually it's starting to be the proof of what many have been saying, which is this notion that Aliyev's country is any kind of an alternative to Russian gas is a myth, because the gas resources are not there. Let's look at what Aliyev's oil minister is demanding. He wants $40 billion investments on a maximum basis to be able to provide 6% of EU energy needs on the natural gas front. Let's look at the breakdown of this 40 billion, which is the key part. About 10 or 12 billion dollars of it would be to expand current pipelines or build much bigger ones. The other 28, 30 billion dollars would actually have to go towards looking for new natural gas resources that frankly have not been found. And this is not, finding natural gas is not something that happens on a daily basis. So they're asking for massive and speculative investments from private sector sources to look for gas that isn't there. As we know, the private sector is not apt to spend that kind of money on something that is not solid. And the other problem with what he's proposing is, even if any of this comes to pass, you're looking at 6 or 7 years before they can even be able to export any of this, even if this gas is found, which they're not likely to have found it, because the way these things work is most of these areas have been explored greatly, and they would have already found it if it wasn't for the fact that it is not there. If you look at the the math on this, the math simply doesn't work unless this is really a big scheme to launder Russian gas into Europe. And there's actually precedence for this because right now, as we speak, Russian oil is being exported to Europe via China and India, who buy from Russia on discount and then they resell it. And everyone is okay with this hypocrisy because if they know if you take Russian oil off the market, we know the prices will be dramatically higher and the world economy will be far more damaged than it already has been by the Ukraine war. Now let's contrast this fraudulent deal with the deal that was announced a couple of months ago between the Germany, EU, and the Qatari government. And there's a new LNG project, and LNG stands for liquefied natural gas, which will provide somewhere between 30 to 35% of European gas use by about 2027. This is a $70 billion project. And if we're just doing the basic math, what Aliyev's oil minister is asking for $40 billion in speculative investments, of which the money they do not have and have not sourced to get to 6%. And what the Qataris are offering is 35% of European use for a $70 billion endorsement for investment. In conclusion, what does all of this prove? It proves what many of us have been saying and many people that are actually experts in the industry, that this entire Aliyev gas project with Europe is actually political. It's really not about energy security because the energy simply isn't there. And this statement by the oil minister about the amount of investments and money that they need to make it work is actually their first admission that this isn't going to happen.